Well, Brian McPherson and I were talking about, we're dreaming about just the future of the church and what were our strengths. And then we were talking about what could really galvanize our congregation and strengthen its relationship with the community. I know that you're going to be talking about like Send Hope, and I know you're going to be talking about FUMC Allen's role in starting ACO. And so there was just a strong missional spirit about the congregation, and always a deep commitment to serving in the community and reaching out into the community to be the hands and feet of Christ. And so Brian McPherson and I were talking about what really could be next. And so we had multiple conversations along those lines. And then in one of our conversations, we talked about what would it be like to have a way where we just did a community service blitz, and we partnered with other churches and organizations in the community to really reach deep into our community, to touch lives and to meet real needs. And Brian and I thought, is that something that our church is ready to do? He said, I think we need one more year of harnessing our strengths with what we're already doing. And so we did. We continued to talk about it, and I don't remember what year that was, but then at a missions committee meeting, somewhere in that year, prior to starting Change the World, one of the members brought up the idea, what if FUMC Allen led the way in doing a community service blitz that tried to meet real needs, build real relationships to meet those needs. And so the very thing that we had been talking about and praying about and just dreaming about came up in a missions committee meeting. And I think it was Sharon Bryan who brought that. And so from there, it really blossomed. And so what was tugging at our hearts began to tug at the hearts of the laity, because that idea really resonated within the missions team. And so then we branched out from there, had conversation about it with the ad council, and just one thing led to another. And then I think what really solidified that God was guiding us in this was the fact that David Winch, who is a former member of the church, who was a lieutenant colonel in the Army, who was a West Point graduate, who wanted to use the skills that he had learned in the military to organize people to bring about the greatest good and that we could possibly imagine. And so David helped us to organize the first several years of Change the World. And David had a compassionate heart with a strategic mind. And he was able to organize people in a way that I have never seen before, and then motivate them to accomplish their charge. And so David was instrumental in building relationships within the community, within the city council. It was, Change the World was declared, an actual weekend in Allen at the time when we were just focused on the weekend. And so that momentum began to build. And really the vision of Change the World Weekend was to create a tidal wave of love and charity within our community, and partnering with as many people as possible to make this huge difference. And the weekend really was about practicing what we should be doing every day of the rest of the year. And we practiced it on that weekend, and we worked together to bring it about. So the call came over time. And then the leaders fell in place, and God just provided in ways that we couldn't even imagine. And partnerships were built, and things began to happen. So that's sort of how the call came about.
I love that you and Brian felt the call, but then the call was also placed on the laity in the missions committee. And I'm reminded that when I began in the ministry, I read I can't remember who the book is by, but it is that there's always an internal and an external call. And that's really what that was. It was God,
Yes.
that God saying to you, no, you're not making this up. I'm saying this to other people over here. And I love hearing about how David brought those gifts of and experience of strategy and motivation, because I didn't know that part of the story. That's wonderful to hear. That's how that the energy got built, not by you all saying this is what we need to do, but the energy came from within the congregation. So you just you knew it was coming, but you didn't have to be the emotional driver behind that. That's really wonderful. Yeah.
Right. It was amazing how those pieces came together, and you could really see God's hand in that. It was amazing. You know, and on those first few years of Change the World Weekend, to see those systems come together and to bring about love and charity, it gave me goosebumps because of just the way things came together and the people that stepped forward, and people that you never imagined from the community would come in and say, how can we be a part of this? And there were other organizations outside of the church that said, how we want to give to this. Not only do we want to provide, people, but we want to provide resources. So it was amazing how that happened.
So what impact did it have on you? What impact did it have on the people who were involved, the people who gave? What impact did you see?
David Winch talked a lot about the idea that the church has left the building. And in the formative years, we would have like one worship service on Sunday morning, and then we would resume our work. And that idea of the church has left the building was a powerful image for all of us, I think, because we come to the church every week, and we do the things for faith formation, spiritual formation, organization, and all of that. But really, when we get down to it, to make disciples of Jesus Christ is about the church leaving the building. It is about entering into the stories of real people who have real needs and tangible needs. And even if we were only able to help them for one weekend by building a fence, or something as simple as mowing their grass, or something as complex as redoing their bathroom, or redoing the flooring in their home, or doing a new roof. Those were meeting tangible needs. So the church had left the building. And so seeing how those projects would emerge, how people were able to submit their project ideas or their needs of their community, and to see that we were able to meet tangible needs, I saw the impact. I think the thing that touched me the most, and I still love that this picture reappears every year on my Facebook memory, but it's of my son Philip, and he's hugging this lady, and the lady said to us when we stopped by there, she said, "Your being here today," meaning the team, not me, "your team being here today has reassured me that God has not forgotten me." Oh, wow. And so not only were we meeting tangible needs, but we were meeting spiritual needs.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were reassuring people that God had not forgotten them. And I just, that's an image that stays with me. And that's something that touches me even now when I talk about it. And knowing that group of people that were there at that woman's house that day, working in her yard, had reassured her that God had not forgotten her. So to me, that's what I think is impactful about Change the World Weekend, is that it's a time in which the church has left the building, doing what I believe the church is called to do, meeting real needs for people, tangible needs, but meeting the spiritual needs of reassuring someone of God's presence in their life.
Thanks be to God. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, is there anything else you want to say?
I'm just so thrilled that Change the World weekend has continued, and that it's blossomed to become more of what God, I believe, desires from the church. And I believe that the fact that y'all taken it to a new level of working throughout the year, and that it's not just one weekend, but it really is becoming a way of life. It's becoming a part of the mindset. It most definitely is a part of the DNA of the church. So I love the fact that, and I'm touched by how it has blossomed to become more of what God desires for it to be, because it's something truly that's bigger than ourselves. And I think that it has just an amazing impact in the community. So I'm just thrilled to death to see the leadership that you bring to it and others in the church. So one other thing, I think that when we, going back to the first question of the call of Change the World, how did it come about? How really back in that day, Change the World Weekend was actually a date on the calendar, on the United Methodist calendar nationwide. And so when we talk about that internal call and the external call, there was something happening not only in our hearts, mine and Brian's. There was something happening in the heart of the missions team, and even nationally as an organization, as a denomination, as a church. So I really haven't kept up with how well it goes nationally, but in those first few years, there was a way that you could look on a map and see all the places that Change the World was taking place. And so it was, I think, a movement of God, and still is a movement of the Spirit for us to be intentional about being the hands and feet of Christ and meeting in tangible needs as well as spiritual needs of our community. So hey, keep up the great work. I'm excited about what y'all are doing.
And my sense is that what happened at Allen was different than in other places. I mean, that was my sense even before I came here, that there was such buy-in, creativity, and maybe that's part of what we were talking about the city of Allen, that this was a place that was uniquely poised to embrace something like this. I don't know, but I'm not sure that it has had as much of a continued life nationally as it has here, because it very much is part of the identity and one of the signature missions ministries of this church, for sure. So yeah, you're right. I think the community of Allen is always looking for partnerships to make a difference. And so what we talked about in those early days was partnering with congregations to do what they were doing as well. On this weekend, let's all serve the community, but you don't have to do what we're doing. Do what you do best. But let's just do it on the same weekend to to create that tidal wave of love and charity throughout our community, and but do what you do best. And so I don't know the degree to which that really caught on. It did, but it was a way of, I think, of inviting people into the story, and a way of saying, you don't have to do what we're doing. We'll help you. We'll, if you need ideas for projects, we've got plenty of ideas of projects. But whatever your church or your organization's signature ways of serving, by all means, do those. And so there were groups that really, I think, that really liked the idea of partnering.
really liked the idea of doing things on that same weekend. And so, yeah, but you're right. Alan was poised for those relationships, encouraged those relationships, like through ACO, through Rotary or Kiwanis or other community service organizations. Community organizations are service-oriented organizations through the schools. So yeah, Alan really was poised, I think, to encourage and nurture those partnerships and relationships, most definitely.
Yeah.
So I'm just really excited that it's continuing, and I thank God for your leadership and for the leadership of others in the congregation that have continued. God has provided because this is something I think that's pleasing to the heart of God, to see people in action.
Yeah.